Welcome back. Tiny tracks on South Africa's south coast tell of paths trod hundreds of thousands of years ago. Far below the sight lines of large animals like elephants and giraffes, tiny creatures were forging their own way across the landscape. Now, an article in a Quaternary Research journal traces these gerbil tracks. For more on this, I'm joined by Charles Helm, a research associate at the African Center for Coastal Palaeo-science at the Nelson Mandela University. A very good morning to you, Charles, at least South African time. I know it's about 11 o'clock in the evening in Canada. Thank you so much for joining us here on the South African morning. So, for those that firstly don't understand, these trods that have been made by gerbils and spiders, especially because we're used to seeing trods being made by much bigger animals, how exactly do these come about? How exactly are they identified? And what is used to identify them?
Well, it's very easy to identify them if you have your eye in. We basically walk along the beach, we walk along the coast, and we keep our eyes open because these are ancient surfaces of dunes, sand dunes and beaches, which are now cemented into rock. And we simply, if we know what to look for in these rock surfaces, we see the evidence of what was walking and running and doing things on those surfaces, most of them about 130,000 years ago, some as old as 400,000 years ago. And we record what we find. We do photogrammetry, 3D imaging and things like that, but it's not a particularly complex process as long as you know what you're looking for.
So once you've found what you're looking for, what kind of information do you seek to extract from these findings? I mean, what are you hoping? Because I mean, at the end of the day, I would imagine this all goes towards academia and teachings of certain things. What exactly is it do you hope to achieve with these findings?
Well, we've discovered, in this particular case, we were just amazed by the fact that animals weighing just a few grams, like gerbils and spiders, could actually leave their tracks that long ago, and we can still identify them. But other things we found were completely unexpected. For example, on the Cape South Coast, crocodile tracks, breeding sea turtles, extinct species like the giant buffalo and the Cape giant horse. So, there are many things that we found that were not expected from the body fossil record. And these also have implications for climate change, because in those days, to have crocodiles and breeding sea turtles down there, it had to be a lot warmer. Sea levels would have been a lot higher. And then for most of the ice ages, the coastline was way below where it is today. And the sea levels were lower and the coastline was up to 100 kilometers south of where it is today, and you had this vast plain there teeming with animals. So that there are all sorts of implications and inferences one can make.
Dr. Charles, to some extent there is belief that life began right here where we now live in South Africa, and there is a lot of science that goes to prove that to, again, a certain extent. How far do these findings go on to prove that this really is where life began, that this is where the rest of the world essentially came out of?
Absolutely right. So we have found 6 human hominin track sites, amongst the oldest ever attributed to our species, Homo sapiens. And we've also found that humans weren't just walking on these surfaces, they were making patterns and drawing things on these surfaces, which we can now interpret. We never expected to find anything like that, but absolutely, these things confirm that South Africa, and in particular that Cape South Coast, is quite possibly, the dawn of humanity for us as a species. This is where it happened. This is where we survived and we thrived, and then we went out and colonized the rest of the world. There's some very profound moments that we have, especially when we discover the hominin track sites.
Just before I let you go, Doctor, is there an anticipation for more findings?
COVID has put a bit of a stop to things for a year or two, but absolutely, it's an ongoing project. So far, we have found 300 of these track sites in a coastal stretch of 350 kilometers, but they come and go very quickly. The gerbil tracks, the spider tracks, they've already gone. They've eroded away, they've slumped into the sea. So we have to be nimble. We have to have our eye in. repeatedly go and check sites out in areas of coastline out, especially after rockfalls, etc. Always on the lookout for new things.